Assalamu alaikum, assalamu alaikum, assalamu alaikum to every single person that's watching at the moment. I'm sorry again for the delay. Let me turn this down. I'm so sorry for the delay. This one's my fault, Nak. So my neighbors here next door. You might hear them. You might hear them again. So they're literally drilling into the walls. So if you hear a sudden noise, it's not a technical difficulty. I've been waiting since 5. I'm so sorry, Joar. I'm so sorry, but I'm here to deliver, inshallah. So today, it's a fairly okay. I'm gonna try and mix two things together, and which is basically a more motivational conversation, but also shed a lot of light on new approaches, that we're new things that we're trying out as Gambians and things like that. And the reason I called this show the Raising of Innovation, I just feel like, thank you. I just feel like it's time for us to, it's never too late to come out of your shell. It's never too late to live that dream that you've been thinking about for the longest time. It's never too late to actually go for what you want. I think there's a point where, I wouldn't call it a midlife crisis, but there comes a point where you feel like, let me just go for it, F it. Let me just try and go after what I wanted to go after all these years. And my passion was this. And the person I'm bringing on today, if you know her, you probably know her from the Fyen network. Her name is Anna Fye Buttner. Anna Fye, she's a Gambian, or she's half Gambian, but she's Gambian, and she's one of those people that's been forever inspirational to a lot of women on social network, and she's a voice of encouragement. And I remember when I first started this, I think I must have been in a couple of episodes, I got a message from her, and she was talking about how, how things were going and things like that. She admired the fact that I was actually, doing this. And I was like, okay, cool. So that was a voice for me and she's continuously been that voice for me. And I think she's been that voice for a lot of Gambians. I've seen her name and her likes everywhere, and she's got this amazing podcast that I'll go into. And when I say I'll go into, this is when the show might turn a bit unkosher. Because of her content, it's educational, but when it has a certain type of directness when it comes to sex and sex education and just opening the mind of individuals to, just to make our sex lives better, we generally have a stigma or a taboo against it. So, yeah, I'm going to bring on Anna Buttner, and I'm definitely going to have an interesting show today, because just like me, do they filter? She doesn't filter. She does not feel the need to filter, which is one of the things that has definitely, urged me to let me just bring her on and see what she's all about and things like that, so we can get to know her and she can talk about amazing work. 1 second, let me just type her in. Let me just see if she's there. Thank you, Jor. Big mahaseba parecing a man and my little like a petty jungle. Well, I get out. I get it. I understand. But if you're just joining, you are watching the Chit Chat with Chad. And today's show, like I said, I'm having Anna Buttner on. She's an amazing inspiration to a lot of Gambians. Though she's very behind the scene with her support, which makes her even more exciting and more special. And boy, today is going to be very interesting. Very, very, very interesting. If you just bear with me, I'm online. Let me see. I want to know exactly where you guys are calling and watching, not calling, where you're watching from. That's one thing I also wanted to know. I want to know where my audience is. I know a lot of you are in Scandinavia and London and things like that, but I want to know if there's other people around the world that are not Gambian that are watching this content. Because sometimes I feel like it's important to have like a broader audience, and one of the main things that I realize is I've got a lot of followers in Nigeria and Ghana and things like that, but do they follow the language? So that will enable me to brush up on my skills. But there she is, perfect. Hello. Where'd she go? Where'd she go? Forgive us for the internet. Forgive us for the internet. Are you there? Are you there? Hey!
Hello.
You finally made it.
Girl, I
We
was all
finally
over the
made it.
place. I was all over the place. I was like, where do I go?
Uh,
I've never done a Facebook Live
you
thingy before, so I was confused. But then
know,
I figured to come on your Chit Chat with Chat page, and that'll get me to your live.
we are all confused. I'm still learning. Don't worry. You got out, and I'm like, okay, they'll understand.
You look
But
beautiful, by the
welcome to the
way.
Chit Chat with Chat. Yamadaha, Yamadaha,
Thank
Yamadaha.
you.
It's good to have you on. I was just explaining to everyone how amazing you are. Before we go into all the details of the
Oh,
show and things like
thank
that,
you.
maybe, just maybe, but definitely, Balama. I mean, thank you for being that voice for a lot of Gambian people. I've seen your support, not just for me, for a lot of Gambians that trying to do their thing, those likes and the shares and all of that. It makes
Hmm.
all the difference. And
It does.
thank you before we get into the show.
Thank
But I was also explaining to people, nah, you don't have to filter. And we can talk about anything and everything.
you. Hmm.
So you don't have to think about the time. If it gets a bit out of hand, I can always move it to YouTube. If you need to take it
Okay.
off. But I'm
Okay.
learning you know. But welcome to the Chit Chat with Chat.
Thank you.
And yeah, this is Anna Fye, and tell us about yourself. I mean, what? Who is Anna Fye?
Thank you for having me on. I'm so excited to be on. I watch your YouTube videos all the time, and it really sparks a lot of discussions with my friends and I, or with my sisters and I, so I love it. I'm happy to be on here. So, who am I? A lot of people know me, especially in Gambia, with my children's books project with my sisters, which is the Fyen
Mhm,
Network. So, we write children's books, but mainly focusing on African inspired stories because again,
mhm,
representation matters. So we want African children, whether you're in the diaspora, whether you're back home, to be able to see yourself reflected back in a storybook. Some of us grew up reading Peter and Jane books, Bukitubab, and
yeah,
they're talking
yeah.
about the dog jumping on the bed, and that doesn't resonate with us. Like for us, even
No, it doesn't.
if you have dogs,
Yeah.
they're outside, they're not inside. So it's nice
Mhm.
for kids to not only see the images of themselves in our books, but also hear names and see names and read names that they hear around the house, whether it's Halima or it's
Mhm.
Omar or it's Fatu, because then there's a real connection there. And so a lot of people know me through doing the Fire Network books, but professionally, I am a communications expert and I'm also a public policy analyst. I'm married. I have two children. My daughter actually just turned 14 yesterday, and I'm like, wait, what? I have a 14-year-old? When did this happen? Yes, girl. I have a 14-year-old.
Oh,
Old. And so
wow.
it's a blessing
But
though,
you know what? Black
watching her
doesn't
grow.
crack. You don't even look like you have a yeah. But black doesn't crack. You look good.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the Gambian and Tanzanian genes in me. Sometimes they ask me if my daughter's my sister, and I'm like, Holly, just go with it. Yes, she's my sister. I'm her older sister. I'm like, just go with it.
One day that's
But
gonna
I'm
get old,
happy.
by the way. Let me just tell you.
I know. I know. So I'm enjoying it now while I can. So today you brought me on so that we could discuss how to raise innovative children, especially for us Africans, maybe specifically for
Exactly.
us Gambians. So you just let me know
Yes.
when you're ready to dive in, because girl, I'm ready.
No, the reason why I asked you to explain who you were in the beginning was because I know there's so many different dimensions to the character of who you are, and I know that the book has inspired a lot of people because I've seen an uprising. I don't know who came before who, but I can see a lot of books happening with characters that we can actually recognize as us. So
That's right.
that in itself to me is an accomplishment because as Gambians we need to do more to put ourselves out there, especially when it comes to culture and things like that.
Hmm.
I think
Hmm.
we still, we're still behind on trying to recognize who we really are to a certain extent, you know?
True.
So with the influence of internet and foreign books, like you said earlier, all these
Hmm.
stuff play a role.
Hmm.
But what I wanted to really, really focus on to start off with was, the innovative mind of a child. I mean,
Hmm.
in Gambia, I just go hamne. Fine, yani I'm dream, yani buga duga see if music, la hikna do gewel. That sort
Hmm.
of thing.
Yeah.
And right now, with the way things are going and things are very uncertain,
Hmm.
how do you nurture that compared to hamga yanko buga bay pour free, but you don't want the child to end up in a situation where hamne do muna handle bopam, do muna
Hmm.
financially secure bopam, ligay and things like that.
Hmm.
We our culture, again, I'm sure you probably know this, does not allow us
Hmm.
to be a certain way, and I just wanted you to touch on that. Like, what would you think is the best approach to a parent that is finally realizing that Dorman wants to be like something they weren't prepared for?
First, I think always it starts with the parents, right? So for the parents, you have to be a conscious parent. Now, this is something that's unconventional because
Mm.
conscious parenting, a lot of the weight is on you and not on the child. Because when it
True.
comes to parenting, we really exert ourselves, our power, and our ego when dealing with
Mm-hmm.
human beings that are younger, they're little, and we brought them into this world. You almost feel like I own you, but you don't own your
Mm-hmm.
children. They come into
Mm-hmm.
this world already who
Yeah.
they are. So the first thing I'd say for the parents is number one is check your language. And when I say check your language, I'm talking about bailen di ajisen dormi. It starts in
Yes.
how you speak to your children. Ñëwal fii sa bakken bi mel ni néegi mboota. Awal nii yaa ngi sew mel ni banti bale. Demal toog yaa ngi duuf mel ni borigo.
Yes.
See, that
Yes.
language right there is what your child is going to internalize. A lot of the times, the complexes and the insecurities that we have,
Psychologically.
it
Yes.
starts with the parents. It's in the home. It starts in the home. How are you talking to your child? Are you being degrading? Are you being sarcastic? Are you being cruel? And a lot of this you can't really touch on without looking at the mom. Because when a mom is hurt, when a mom is dealing
Mm-hmm.
with PTSD, maybe because the husband has cheated, or maybe because she doesn't feel confident in herself, maybe she doesn't have high self esteem,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe her husband speaks down to her. So the closest person to you to take that out on is your children. So if your
Which is
husband yells
yes.
at you, you turn around and you yell at your child. Awal ni lawa, defal ni lawa. And then your child
Saga.
sees that.
Yeah.
Well, sagalasa. And then your child is also
Yeah.
going to talk to the younger siblings the same way. Danga gis xale yi suñ wàccee
Mm-hmm.
school suñ demee jëli seen rakay they're like ñëwal ñu ñibbi waay dañoo ñibbi waay. And the reason they're speaking like that is because their parents speak that way to them. So
That
now you've
way. Yes.
created a culture in the family. You've created a pattern of just yelling at each other, being impatient, being
Mm-hmm.
insensitive, and having a tone and an attitude that is disrespectful. You disrespect your children are going to disrespect the younger sibling. So we need to
Mm-hmm.
check ourselves how we talk to our children. Gis nga jigéen dañ la dee wax Gambia ndax Sénégal suñu aada yi sa jëkkër su ñëwee dangaa neex làmmeñ sooy wax moom danga ko wax bu neex jëkkër dafa bëgg a ñib si kër jëkkër dafa bëgg a ñib si kër goo xam ne bànneex moo fa nekka but don't you think xaleel tamit dafa bëgg a wax bu neex xaleel tamit dafa bëgg a ñib si kër boo xam ne bànneex moo fa nekka that's right benn xaleel bëggut a ñib si kër boo xam ne dañ laa yuuxu di la coow góor su boppam mag an adult if they don't want to come to a home where your wife is going to be yelling at you degrading you making you feel like you're less than a man you're going to want to hang out in the voo xaleel tamit noonu la soo ñëwee si kër boo xam ne dañ laa coow ñu ngi laa aaji ñu ngi laa yuuxu yow tam doo bëgg a ñib si dangaa nekk si mbedda bi di fo so how we talk to our children matters instead of nga aji sa doom di ko wax ne bakkenam bee ngi mel ni ndéegi mboota tell her how beautiful she is tell him how handsome he is
you know sorry dogumala but even lolu along the line that shit comes back to bite you as a parent
that's right
that attitude you know and then they ask like yo fan nga jëlee lii and you're like no fu ma ko jëlee mooy si yow
that's right
because the child will have a breaking point. Yeah.
That's right. A second thing that I would say, and again, this is for the parents, is check your expectations. Check your expectations. Is your request developmentally appropriate? That means, why is a 5-year-old boating a 2-year-old? Is that developmentally appropriate? Why is a 7-year-old munge bale, munge fompa, munge toga, munge bambane? Why is that? So we have this almost blurred lines where we make the older children parents to the younger siblings instead of making them older siblings and allowing them to be children. Ba pare bii foog ma ñëw si ñun ñu nekk si diaspora bi ñun ñu nekk si diaspora bi yéen foofu lay dooree bàyyi leen di jël seen xale yi 12-year-old yi di leen def babysitters di leen bambaaneloo ñu ngee jógee school ñu ngee ñibsi génneel ganaar bi dugal ko si oven bi toogal maalo bi make sure ne xale yi ngee def school ñu ngee def seen homework ma ne te yóbbu ma kii si daycare bi mënuma ko afford demal nga changeal ma diaper bi it's like you're 7, you're 9. Why are we giving children the responsibilities of the parents? We pass the buck too early to the older siblings in the house. And it's unfair because they don't get to experience being a 7-year-old. Harama egal ko tuti sax 16-year-old bi. Fii si diaspora bi Gambian Senegal. Yes. Ghanaians, Nigerians.
Eventually, lolu more than in the maybe not favoritism. Why xale bi dina feel like okay man kii la suma yaay wala suma pa gëna bëgg dan man ni bu mo liggéey lo and lolu they grow with it.
Absolutely.
I see people that have grown with that.
Yes, and there's resentment. So now you resent the other siblings in the household because yow rek lañ dee osatur. Yaa mu kay rahas, yaa mu kay fompa. Ya mo kay jotalima ya yena TV remote bi sa dañ la oyé be sa néeg kay jotalima TV remote bi botal ma xale bi ba pare maa ngi dellu si ñun Gambian see African si nekk si diaspora bi we have a habit of when our young 16 15-year-olds start working we expect them to contribute to the bills in the house
of course yes
dañ nekk si dëkka boo xam ne ndax dëkka yoo xam ne xëy na 15 16 mun ngaa door liggéey waaye bàyyi leen ñu dem si mall bi ñu dem jëndi seen Victoria's Secret ñu dem jëndi seen Forever 21 clothes ñu dem jëndi seen Jordan shoes age boobu leen nekka why at 16 asking a 16-year-old to contribute to the bills which is your responsibility as a parent is that developmentally appropriate we need to start asking ourselves these questions and of course lastly you have to check yourself you as the parent you have to check yourself because a lot of the times when we deal with our children, our ego comes into place and we feel like we can overpower them. We feel like it's our job to tell them what to do and they shouldn't question us. Let's allow children to question us. And sometimes you have to stand back and be reflective. man de tey suma doom bi
Of
li ma
course.
laaj xaw ma sax I needed to say waa may ma tuuti, then you go upstairs to your husband, baby, do you know what Halima just asked me? And you're in shock.
Yes.
But it's
Yes.
okay. Take the time to process and then bring her back and figure out an appropriate, age-appropriate way of explaining the question they ask. Instead of bulma laaj lolu, you see bonyo you lo malaje lolu. So when you react like that, the next time your child has a question, they're not gonna come to you. They're gonna go to the peer.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
it becomes the case of the blind leading the blind. So before we talk
No.
about raising innovative children, we as parents need to check ourselves. If we don't allow for that space where children can be messy, where children can ask questions, where children can question authority, and you don't feel like it's a personal attack, then we're not going to leave space for children to be who they are innately, because ndax danga judu pour nekk peinture kat, ndax danga judu pour nekk woykat, ndax danga judu pour bind a book, whatever is in you, eventually it comes out, even when your parents try to suppress it. But what happens is you don't get to hit your potential until you're much older and you're out of the house, because then you find the space to really explore and be yourself, be your authentic self, without feeling any sense of guilt or shame, or I'm doing what I know my parents will not be proud of.
Why you damn it? Still focusing on the parents. I'm talking about the bigger picture. So from Nekani,
Yeah.
Gambia, we have this problem. Siswing beer, where
Mm-hmm.
we classify as métier.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's not. We classify as something lo hamne. Wa ki mo am taking up parce que li la doon.
Yes.
Lolu dafa wàññi lu bari ci suñ
Mm-hmm.
development,
Yeah, I
especially
agree.
a child's development. Because yaa ngi dugg si dara, but you're thinking, maybe, just maybe, this is a career boo xam ne mun naa ko use Banjul. And
Mm-hmm.
Banjul is growing.
Yes.
Whatever we put ourselves in from Nekani, we need to think about the bigger picture of bringing it home.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to think about how people will receive this. But
Mm-hmm.
people need to be open enough to receive this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Our community is so rigid. It's so toxic. We need to talk about this.
And when you talk about our community being toxic, we have to talk about therapy. Why are we so reluctant to seek help? Why are we so
Exactly.
reluctant to talk about the issues that affect us, not only emotionally, but affect our behavior, affect our attitude, right? So we put a lot of responsibility on children. So I talked about it's not the responsibility of the child to raise their younger siblings. Can I get an amen for that? Can we please stop putting the responsibility?
No,
Please.
that's not me. No, even like, okay, even yo yaa ngi wax ñooñu man maa ngi wax ñoo xam ne sax ne xëj na yaa ngi jógee Banjul, yaa ngi nekk student si beneen dëkka. Loolu daf la dee toppa bi nga xam ne boo génnee sa war a njëriñ sa boppa, yaa ngi xelaat ni nga calculator pour yónnee waat Banjul. It's like you take upon, sometimes people even inherit looking
Mhm.
after other family members through their parents. I've seen
Yes.
that. Like so
Yes.
uncle B, man munatuma yow yaa war a sponsor sa uncle B.
Yes.
I'm like, why should you, who is this uncle to me? Like, you understand what I mean? Like, I have so
I
many other
do.
things to do,
Mm-hmm.
but why is it such a responsibility? For this guy all these years, why do I have to take on this not burden, but why do I have to take it on board?
Actually, it is
That's
a
another
burden.
thing.
Yeah, actually, it is a burden. And when it comes to, and I feel like that's the reason why we don't get out of poverty. That's why we stay in poverty.
No.
Because before you can help somebody else, you have to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. Yo duñ la musa may nga stand on your own 2 feet. Yo so faya ko 100. Ñu ne waa jëlal 50, 10 joxal sa yaay, 10 joxal sa baay. Léegi 5 bi split ko joxal sa uncle, joxal sa mom, joxal sa,
Bul
by the
faate
time
heavy.
you ah
Bul faate heavy.
ah
Ñaari bu gën a rëy man maa ko war a joxe. Te yaa ma ko war a yónnee.
xew boo dem yaa ngee ndooli di nga yóbbu enveloppe man may jënd ki, so it's like before, where do you get the time to
Another way
build
is
wealth?
envelope.
Huh? Why
You
can I do
understand?
that?
Envelope, do wow.
Envelope before you cannot show up empty-handed.
Of
So
course.
there's all these
Mm-hmm.
social responsibilities that we take on that we don't really allow ourselves the chance to build wealth. So we never get out of the poverty cycle. We stay
No.
in that poverty cycle. Then you're tane wante rek. Then ñun dañ ko wax ñun suñ generation we will not do better than our parents. So suñ parents yi mënoon a sampa kër, mënoon a jëndal farm pour land pour farming, mënoon ñoo yóbbu America pour ñu educate suñ boppa. We left
Te
school
yooyu
with
yëpp
no
léegi
debt.
unrestricted.
Ñun duñ ko mën a defal
Yooyu
suñ
léegi
doomi,
unrestricted. Yeah.
especially if we keep going the way that we're going. You have to allow children the space to build wealth before you start saying, man
Mm-hmm.
mala defal li legi suma ton la, yama topato. It's not
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
not fair when it West, especially West African, because I have an East African mom and I have an East African side of my family, and I see that the demand from the families are completely different. Where the West African, they expect you man mala dan bot binga neki halal legi yangi dembe mak day ma yoni dara. The East African
Yeah.
for that demand is not there. It's just
Tanga
not. So
seeti
it
nit samu wax la.
well dina
You
la wax lim
go
la
on
defalon
holidays
binga
te
neki
xam nga.
halal.
Yes. When I'm on a lab one, you know how many times I've heard that? I'm like, my mom usually really did pass me around then for all you be able to, and I know that's a factual lie. But but you have to entertain the idea and you
Yep.
still have to give.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
but this is where this okay. This is something I've also noticed. A lot of people that are so-called successful in Gambia, their
Mm-hmm.
circle, their family circles are very like close knit. Like they don't. The extended family will always complain. Like, "Kimom, I'm not to but
Wow.
I just feel like I don't blame that person. Maybe, just maybe, the fragile time in it, you know what? How am I focus my funds, my energy, my luneka into my family?
Yes.
Hamga.
Yes.
That is something that people need to understand.
Mhm.
The more successful you are, I think sometimes the less family you might have around you. But at the end of
Yes.
the day, how much family do you need? Like, extended to Domi Mambi and Mambi Nyobo. I mean, Nana, but that's all you are.
And
Hamga.
I feel like it also builds this culture of begging, right? So look for your so-called wealthy family members and nga dem seeti leen ba pare you expect ne sooy ñibbi ku nekk dina la jox dara. So yow soo demee nga seeti 5 family members, ah kon yow sooy ñibbi ku nekk su la joxee dara. That's your work for the day. No, go
Mm-hmm.
figure out what you can do to earn money. Get off your butt
Mm-hmm.
and go and work. My hard
Mm-hmm.
earned money is not to give out to people. But another
No.
thing I wanted to touch on when it comes to parents, because we're going to focus heavily on the parents, because to raise creative and innovative children, we need to allow the space for children to even be like that. So we have to
Yes.
talk about parents need to understand that it's not the kids' responsibility to be emotional support for adults.
Yes.
That's something we also
I was
need
about
to
to go into that,
discuss.
but yeah.
Yes. Like I was watching this Red Table Talk, and Will Smith was talking about when he was a kid, the dad used to abuse the mom. So as a child, he took it upon himself to always make sure that daddy was happy. So he would tell jokes, he would dance, he would be silly, he would just want to make sure that the dad was happy all the time, because if dad's happy all the time, dad is not going to turn to mom and hit her.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine the
Mm-hmm.
the responsibility and the burden as a young kid you're putting on yourself, trying to manage
Mm-hmm.
the emotions of your parents to avoid domestic violence. Loolu tam daf dee xew si suñ dëkk yi, daf dee xew si
Of
suñ biir
course.
sëy yi.
I mean, that I think that time it goes back into all right. The rate of abuse that used to happen back in the day,
Mhm.
it's worse now. Understand? Yeah. And
Yes.
you find a lot of parents, especially the wives and the mothers,
Mhm.
tend to I don't want to say talk about their spouse to the child,
They do.
But if you're going to console with your child, you should be in a position to know where to not mention. Because
Yeah,
yaga lolu dina indi animosity digente dom ak bayam.
of
So already
course.
you've opened that door that you were just referring to.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where kids tend to want to get involved. But you'll always hear in swing society, li suma digante sa ndayla wala li suma digante sa bayla.
Mm-hmm.
Guinness is a gimme.
Mm-hmm.
But how much domestic violence are we exposing our kids to?
A lot.
You
And
understand?
yes, and
And it's way too much.
when there's domestic violence in the home, there's no such thing as li suma digante sa yaay la ndax li suma digante sa baay la.
Yeah.
Soy ñas suma yaay si biir kër bi. Suma affaire la because I'm in the next room and I'm hearing my mom wailing. I'm hearing the sounds of a thud or something crashing or a glass breaking, and as a child that's traumatic. So it affects everybody. Even if as a child you're not the one who's being hit, it's called
Mm-hmm.
secondhand domestic abuse because then you start
Mm-hmm.
to exhibit signs of anxiety, depression. You
Mm-hmm.
start acting out in
Mm-hmm.
class. If you used to have all
And
A's,
all
now
these
all of a
things
sudden,
our community don't like to open up about. It's just recently like door they discuss affair, depression and anxiety and all of that.
mhm,
Nyun,
mhm,
how many women or men have how many people have actually gone through this? Hamga and have been ashamed to open up. You know, I'm
munya.
not saying that but everybody needs somewhere to discuss and open up and just be.
Yes, it's important. And you know what? Yifi munyal sooy sëy ñu si muur bi ñu teg la ñu eeda la wax na ne soo demee dangaa muñal sa jëkkër. Why, where is the man, where is the meeting of men to teach the man
Mm-hmm.
how to behave in a marriage? We focus so much on the woman, and the woman is supposed to endure so much, and the man is just supposed to live his best life and have no
Mm-hmm.
consequences. So léegi
Mm-hmm.
dangaa gis ne we have a generation dañu dee ooyee ñu ñooy generation yi tiki taka dangaa taka tey ëllëg xale yi ñu ne génn nañ si seen sëy yi
What?
tiki nañ
What?
suma maas gi I'm in my second marriage and I'm not even 40 yet, and you know what, that's okay because
Mm-hmm.
if you're unhappy in your marriage and it's not like you just leave because of domestic violence. My marriage, there was no domestic violence, but I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
happy. And it's okay to leave your marriage if your marriage isn't working because we just have
Mm-hmm.
one life to live. So it's
Mm-hmm.
your choice. Ba pare ñun si diin gi because most of the time ñun dañ dee jël suñ aada bi ak suñ tradition bi ñu muur ko ak diin bi su ko defee yeneen nit ñi dañ dee ragal because you're scared to take a decision or a
While you pick
position.
culture, they never said we pick what we want and we leave what we want. Let's not be
That's
hypocrites
right.
here. This is exactly what we do. I don't
Yeah.
like talking about religion, but in Gambia, they say you see Islam, or see
Wow.
Christianity, or whatever, and buy
Wow.
in and you see this.
Well, and
So,
it's very strategic. They do that strategically because it's a way to deter women from having freedom. So suñ ko muuree the culture with deen bi, so léegi yow danga ragal because now you think you're making an offense to God. Forget your
of
husband
course.
and forget your brother or your mom or your dad. You're thinking about God. But guess what?
Mm-hmm.
Ñun deen bi daf ñu allow pour ñu génn si say yoo xam ne it's not good for us.
Mm-hmm.
We can leave
Of course.
and move on. So when you're in a
Mm-hmm.
marriage where it's not healthy, you're not happy, there's no changes that are taking place, your husband is not open to taking any kind of marriage counseling, you know what? You can make the decision to leave. Su leen neexee ñu ooyee ñu generation yi tiki taka. The point is, xale yu jigéen ñi delloo ci xale yu góor yi. So it's time for the men to step up. You want to stay in your marriages?
Mm-hmm.
Step up. You want women pour ñu muñal leen? Step up.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that
Mm-hmm.
simple. So now we are requesting
Yeah.
from the men to do better. And
Mm-hmm.
it's fair. It's only fair.
This brings me actually to this. Actually, it's good that you touched on marriage.
Hmm.
This brings me to when you said that point about the mur, the
Yeah.
mangamun,
Hmm.
right? The
Hmm.
manga talk. But one thing I've noticed, I'm gonna go into Lotus flower now. By the way, this I'm
Okay, no
trying to.
problem.
um, basically, you when you touched on marriage, one aspect, bohamne, the musa jahal. And that's like the expectation for every woman to be a virgin.
Mm-hmm.
But on your wedding night, you're supposed to perform. You're supposed to know, like, it's like they let you like dugal la sidara lo hamne. You don't know, and they're like, wow, chicken danga jonge, danga amput. Okay, I'm just talking. This is me getting like into it now. I'm like, okay, how can a woman that or a girl, let's say a
Mm-hmm.
young lady or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
duga si bir say, feka hamu dara, understand with yaramambi or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. Like, how can we even? This is still running on raising innovational. How
Mm-hmm.
can we be sexually exposed, to be sexually active, to be, experience? Well, I'm the good, obviously, so
Mm-hmm.
without those things being open to us when we were younger,
Yeah.
when you're growing up. This is why when you touched on certain things
Mm-hmm.
on Lotus Flower, I was so proud of you because I'm like, this is what we need.
Yeah.
Someone is going to tell us how it is.
Because see, the thing is, we have this very unrealistic expectations for women to stay virgin until you get married. But while
Yeah.
you're being a virgin, your body is doing some things as you grow. When you're 15, you're 16, ham nga sa tat be nge do di toy, yenay sa clit be nge do di raf, yenay yangi hemem góor, and you don't know where to put that
Yeah.
energy. But you're human. It's happening to you. All you know is
Mm-hmm.
sa papa mune, ndax sa yaay mune, su la góor laalee da ngaa biir, su la góor laalee sa ween bi da ngaa biir. Wow.
Yeah.
Su njëkkee sa wang bi da ngaa biir. So you're deathly afraid of men, but
Yes.
you're having sexual feelings in your
It's
body,
everywhere. It's even worse now.
and
It's
you don't know
everywhere.
where to put that sexual energy. So bima started Suma Lotus Flower podcast, one of the topics I first tackled was góor kenn du leen dee jàngal pour ñu rata seen kooy góor
Yeah.
ñoom ñëpp from when you're maybe 13 góor xam na naka nga ratee sa kooy bi pour nga daaneel sa boppa
Right.
fekk sax xamaguloo jigéen waaye xale yi jigéen
Mm-hmm.
yi kenn du leen dee jàngal pour ñu laal seen boppa pour ñu mun a daaneel seen boppa so yéen da ngeen
Mm-hmm.
bëgg a xale
Mm-hmm.
yi jigéen yi waruñoo just even get connected with their sexual part of their body ba bés bi ñoo sëy kay leen ñu waxante dëgga that is unrealistic te nekkul di xew.
It's unrealistic. Absolutely.
So why is it so taboo for us to say we should teach girls how to masturbate?
Yeah.
What is so terrible about that? When a girl orgasms for the first time, she realizes her sexual prowess. She realizes she can help herself release that sexual tension. And there's nothing wrong
Mm-hmm.
with it. And there's all these myths.
Mm-hmm.
Jigéen soo ko jàngalee pour mu laal boppam dafa nekk caga. Jigéen soo ko
Yeah.
jàngalee pour mu laal boppam su du bugg a góor dafa bugg a bopp. Those are all myths.
And
It
then
is
they
not
blame it
true.
on they blame it. They also blame it on female circumcision. There's
Exactly.
this myth about women not being able to, you know, basically have proper sex because apparently, yeah, the clit is no longer there, so she's just basically there, which to me is complete nonsense.
It is. It is. And in my podcast, I also address the girls that have been circumcised because it's harder for girls
Mm-hmm.
that have been circumcised to get an orgasm. So for the
Mm-hmm.
man, firstly, you have to realize that the woman you're dealing with has been circumcised. You have to practice patience. You have to be very gentle. You have to make sure that the tissue that has the scarring, you're not being rough with it. You have to make sure that you're just taking your time and learning her body. I spoke to
Mm-hmm.
this lady who had been circumcised, and it took her 4 years into her marriage before she was able to have her first orgasm. And it was like an out of body experience for her. 4 years, jëkkër bi amul lum trayut. They ended up bringing sex toys into the bedroom to help with her reaching an orgasm for the first time. So it's possible for a girl to have an orgasm when you've been circumcised. It's just much harder. Why ñun xale yi
Mm-hmm.
jigéen yi nga xam ne circumcised ñu suñ cliti sooy seetaan télé rek nga gis foo na rek sa droos be ngi tooy xepp because nit nga deret mooy daw sa biir
Yeah.
yaram bi So ñun
Yeah.
lu tax waruñoo teg suñ 14-year-old yi ak suñ 15-year-old yi. I know it's very controversial déedéet xale bu jigéen kër waru koo jàngal mu laal boppam gis nga si suma aadiyaay bi in Tanzania they have this thing that's called kufundua. Kufundua starts with girls once you get on your period. So once you get on your period, then they am sa anti bu laa yóbbu si néeg mu explainal la ne soo tëddee góor di nga mun a biir. Why also explainal la sa ween yi xam nga sooy am sa period bi how sensitive it is. Why is that? Ba pare explainal la yi fi importance of ngay change drawers. Xam nga soo sagoo suba change yeneen nga change si afternoon bi sax Africa nga xam ne dafa tàngaay yaa ngee ñaxa ñu jàngal leen naka ngeen a watee seen jaaf yi génnee kawar gi fa nekk ndax seen taat yi buñ xeeñ ba pare jàngal leen naka ngeen a laaboo jàngal leen naka ngeen a cleané si biir nga dugal sa benn finger nga clean si biir soo jeexalee sa period bi soo jeexalee di fóot waaye ñun Gambian bi ak yeneen aada yi dañ dee def comme soo dugalee sa loxo bi rek yow nekkaatuloo virgin génnee nga sa hymen bi yow fi mu nekk nekkaatuloo xale
bicycle, you don't live.
You don't.
From the point where you are, but I even periods now, just a couple of years, but I period be. You're so focused on preserving your hymen to a point where it becomes an obsession for everyone. It's like you have so much pressure. Apparently, you're supposed to bleed, and all these things. I'm like, okay, we need someone to just break out of her shell or his shell or whatever shell that exists and talk to people on a level and tell them, this is innovative thinking. This is something that we need. And your show, Lotus Flower, does exactly that. And I don't like, okay, we've discussed this as well.
Yeah.
People tend to think that lingawa is a taboo, blah, blah, blah. Okay, if you actually listen to the show, the podcast itself, and I'm talking to everybody that's trying to talk shit about your show or your podcast. So don't don't talk about this. We all have sex. We all know about sex. It's in our faces. It's everywhere we go. Our kids have access to it more than ever. So I would think the first communication or first explanation or whatever about real sex facts would come from a parent.
But it doesn't happen.
Culture, you don't want to open that door to your child because so eventually because you know local aye.
Yes.
Yes. Local aye. Lola more than uti. So
But
you better start having those conversations now.
Absolutely. And someone commented that masturbation is haram according to Islamic teachings for both men and women. Actually, it says that you are allowed to masturbate if it's going to stop you from adultery and if it's going to stop you from illegal sex. Illegal sex is considered sex before marriage, right? Well, there you go. So you can masturbate because it's going to stop you from going out in the streets and having sex with your high school classmate, having sex with the neighbor, because those sexual urges are in you and you can't suppress it. Why man luma understand ta moy ñaari baram yo jël tek ko sa taat bi nga daanel sa bop. What is so explosive about that? Like I don't get it. Like what? Why xale góor yi lu tax ñoom ñu mun a rata seen koy yi te kenn waxut ne xale bu góor waru ko koy bopam.
Boys stand in the street and hold their penises anyways. Like I've seen men and I'm just like like, and that is normal. So even the way we think when it comes to let's say sex, it's like before, back in the day, so the guy gets all excited. Now we've gone beyond that point, and seriously, so where is the draws and someone sees it, it's like, oh my gosh, that's a G-string. I've never seen one of those. And you're talking about so you're trying to tell me that if that excited them way back in the 90s, imagine now with so much sex out of there,
Yes, and so, you know what?
I mean, why? This is why I'm like, okay, how are we going to raise the next generation to be open-minded, to be respectable to other people's values, of course, but to also be open to things that are, at the end of the day, life lessons and things that you take with you. We can't be a nation this behind. Like, seriously?
I feel
Our
like
people need
we want to stay in the dark ages. Gis nga chat. At the end of the day, ñun Gambian bi ñun ñoo bëgg tam move forward de. Why rest of the world mu ngi move forward de ñun kenn xaaruñu.
yeah,
Ñun ñoo taxaw fiñ
yeah,
taxaw rek sangu suñ boppa. Ba pare ne wow, we just want to stay in the dark ages, but the rest of the world is moving forward. And if we
yeah,
want to move forward with it, we have to adapt to what is happening. Now, culture, we have to remember, culture was created by us. We humans
yeah,
created culture, so we can change
yeah.
culture. We can update culture. Why ñun ñi lañ ko dee defee, that means nobody should question it and we shouldn't upgrade it. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't go with the times. And I feel like when we talk about, girls' sexuality, that's where the problem is. Because when it comes to men's sexuality, everything is okay. We have to remember that we're in the day and age where these children are being bombarded by pornography everywhere. Gis nga
Yeah,
xale boo xam ne
yeah,
am nga phone rek, you have access to porn, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on WhatsApp. There is porn everywhere. So balanga bay sa xale bi di jàngee yifi sex through porn. Why don't you tell them? Why don't you educate them? Because we all know that what you see in porn is not real. So these little boys watch porn and they see a
I
girl
think that's
squirting.
normal.
Yes, they see a girl squirting and the water's everywhere. So when they have sex and you orgasm and you don't squirt, they're looking at you like, janga luel, anandoh bi, yow dara génnu di, xanaa defuma bu baax. Because you
Yes.
don't realize that normal orgasm is different from squirting. And there's certain women who squirt, and there's some women who will never squirt in their life. And there's some women who have a partner, and all of a sudden he's doing something to you and you react in a different way and you squirt. Like my husband is from Rwanda. In Rwanda, they have a tradition. And the tradition is they pull the vaginal lips of the girl. Ñoom seen taati is completely different comme man maa yow suñ taati xam nga jigéen boo xam ne dañ ko xarafal taatam looks different from jigéen boo xam ne
Yeah.
xarafaluñ ko ñii tamit seen bos seen taat bi is different because ñoom dañ dee xëcca seen lips yi. So they pull the vaginal lips from when you're young. So ñoom seen lips yi daf dee hang. And the reason for that is ne sula bi duggee lips yi dafa cover the entire sula. So it gives a different feeling. And then they have,
Feeling.
yes, and then they have this thing that they call kunyaza. Kunyaza mooy ñoom seen aada bi in Rwanda xale bu góor bi dafa jël sulaam bi tippi du la entade waaye daf ko jël rek di ko dóor si sa clit bi and it takes time and it's very sensual and it helps women to squirt. So nim ko dóoree noonu it's gonna excite ba dangaa dégga ndox bi si boppam bala ngaa squirt ndox bi si boppam dafa doo di génna tuuti tuuti ba yow nga squirt yéen dangaa squirt si kanamam bi wala nga squirt si chestam bi, and this is before he even penetrates you. And for the men in that part of the world in Rwanda, their priority is to make sure that the woman orgasms. Their priority is to make sure that the woman enjoys herself.
That's another thing that I've spoken about several times, and I don't think people understand Mawahe. Sex is not a one-way street. A lot of people in Gambia complain about this, and I'm hoping and praying my brothers listen to this. It is not a one-way street. A woman needs to orgasm just as much and as badly as you.
Yes.
Why? Because I don't know if it's not being naive, because we don't discuss these things again. You don't even know what to expect as a woman.
Why gis nga moo tax xaaral ma dellu
around with
Sorry, I wanted to go back to the tradition that they do in Tanzania that's called kufundua. See, the reason for doing kufundua when a girl reaches her period is to also sexually empower you. So, mère bi la dugal si néeg bi di la jàngal naka nga change sa drosi, naka nga watee sa jaaf bi, naka nga laabo, so jeexale sa period, naka nga make sure ne yaa ngi clean si biir bem set which kula jangal the sensitivity si sa ween yi lutax lolu dina la mom si jigen gi si bopam daf la mochal sa ween yi. I know it's kind of jarring, like whoa, but that's your aunt. That's to show you what a man is supposed to do and what sensation you're gonna get from it. Be pare dinañ la won naka nga toge si kaw sula, naka nga move si kaw sula, dinañ la jangal position yoy yep, and you're thinking, well, you just got your period, so that might be too early. But that was back in the day, right? Where once you got your period, you were expected to be sexually active. Now, what they do is they do it in phases. So the first phase, they teach you about your period. They teach you about cleanliness. They teach you about how to clean yourself. Like then you buy la benga ega 18, 19. Then you do dila one jigin nakanga mune goor. Jigéen naka nga muna handule sa bopa si kaw lal bi, jigéen naka nga ibee sa gémmiñ ngay wax su ko defee nga mun a waxa sa góor. Xam nga ñaata Gambian jigéen ñoo nekk seen biir néegi sëy dañoo tëra di folsu seen góorang seen kaw, doo leen dégg ñu wax, doo leen dégg ñu moon, yéen xale bu góor bi doo xam sa ndax kilee ngeen nelaw ndax dafa eew. So it teaches you sexual confidence. So when you're in the bedroom, you're able to speak up and say, I like it when you go faster. I like it when you go slower. Baby, I like it when you lean because then you can stimulate my clit. I like it when the point is you're asserting yourself while you're having sexual intercourse so you can experience orgasm as well. Ba pare yéen ay suñ góor yi xam nga miinuñ ko waaye su ñëwee fii biir America ndax ñu dem Sweden ndax ñu dem London jàng xay lu nekkale tubaab yeeg neegar yi dañ leen di out ci biir néeg bi naan leen nigga you ain't doing shit, I ain't feeling shit. Xam nga neegar bi moom do moom lu ko neex wax yéen ay soo xamul looy def sax moom si boppam moo laa ne I'm done, get off me nigga, that was a whack dick. You like lan mooy whack dick man lii laa miin because Gambian bi na African bi moo la miinal nga def lu la neex rek mun a teg fii fii xale jigéen yi dañoo ibi seen gémmiñ ñu wax li leen neex su neexut dañ laa ne neexut bugguma stobal su neexee ñu ne la waaw aha waaw góor yow kay yow yaa ngeen def sa affaire ba pare dañ laa wax liñ bugga ndax ñoom tam ñu daanu. So my podcast Lotus Flower is basically empowering the women and telling them soo eegee si paat boo xam ne yaa ngi def taati neen yaa ngaa tëddaa góor léegi rus nekkatu fa nobatu nekkatu fa.
Of course. Yeah.
Ibil sa gémmiñ bi ndax nga wax ndax yow tam nga mun a enjoy sa boppa. Just a few sessions I did with Danny Constance where I was just voicing these opinions and these videos went viral. Hey, Anna Fye mom, look at
I saw them and I was like, oh shit, they're coming for her.
I would look at the good.
That's what I saw. I was like, she will not hold back.
No, because for me, it's like, first of all, you can't put me in a box. I am so many things, and I am so okay and confident in who I am that people's opinions really, it's like opinions like an asshole. Everybody's got one. That's just my attitude about opinions. So if you want to listen to my podcast, you actually physically need to go into your phone and get in and play. So amé jot bi pour def lolu yeb kon yow buga nga déglu way bul déglu ba pare joggé fa Anna Fye yi mo wax dafa oppa su dé lima wax dafa oppa ci yow bu ko déglu way ñi ko buga dégga ak ñi sé jangé dara ñom dinañ ko dégga. So it's not by force. I'm not shoving it in anybody's face, but I'm saying there needs to be a space where us as Gambians can have these conversations and make it okay. A lot of girls are sexually active and they feel guilty. They feel shameful about it. So even during the act, they don't know how to let go. Man, I'm not Suma ninyo hamne hamnale nyung si say ne sen jikari. I 9-10 years. Musu nyo gis sen suli jika. Is that possible? Yes, it's possible si suñ aada bi. So hale bu góor bi dafa ñëw rek guddi daanu sa kaw rek dugal. Yow I'm like, so yow doo ko téye, yow doo ko xool, yow doo ko mocca, yow doo ko phone. 10 years musuloo gis sa suli jika. That's not fair. We can already just make peace with the fact
that it all leads back into psychological problems.
Absolutely.
Mentally, we are a nation of not confused but unopened, like we are just, what's the word for it? I'm trying to find the word for it.
We are traumatized.
We're just
I said most of us are dealing with traumas that we haven't processed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not know something you yaga si say gagis ganan aki dafa am stress or ki dafa neka, dafa talk like mu dof wala dafa buga haru or something like that, and I'm just like, the reason why, it's like, even when we talk about drugs, the other day I saw someone post something about animal tranquilizers in Gambia. It's always been a thing.
Yeah.
It's always been a thing. Drugs have always been there. People are using it. It's like marijuana people keep on complaining about. But I'm just like, okay, do we actually know why these people turn to these things and become users? Like, even going back to when we had our first Bunyodor conversation, expectations of everybody in the community and the way we're supposed to be. If you don't fit that bill, you're automatically just losing your mind.
Yeah. There's so much pressure.
Society label la na wa ki mom pare o ba daf de ekati daf am nga adam ngeen naan ngeen def li laajuloo nit ki deep down yow lan nga nekk di face ak lu tax amuloo motivation wala lu tax openuloo about lii ak lii ak lii ak lii ak lii xam nga pour even njëriñ sa boppa.
Well,
parce que you know what I mean.
I get you, but also I feel like most of the time there's no outlet. So when there's no outlet, you turn to self-harming. How many kids or how many young adults, adolescents are in homes where they're being abused and they can't tell anybody? So now you're going to take that sexual trauma and you're going to take it to your marriage. Yena xale dañoo wax ne waaw kii moom virgin la. Waaw waaye su demee pour jëkkëram fekk ko ndaw jëkkëram fekku ko ndaw so léegi jëkkëram daf koo wax ne waaw man lifi naa waaye fekkuma fa dara waaye duma ko wax kenn. So now he feels like he has something over you instead of asking what happened, because you might have lost your virginity because you were molested, because you were sexually abused and you didn't have a way of telling anybody. So it was not voluntary. Waaye léegi xale bu góor bi jël loolu nag def ko over your head. Duma wax sa parents ne yow bi ma demee pour fekk la ndaw dara nekku fa man yow jaar nañ si yow ba pare xam nga. So xale yu góor yi tamit ñoom dañ leen war a jàngal how to have empathy, how to be kind to women, how to just treat.
Feka ana doguma la waaye feka suñ paa yi tamit am empathy, am compassion, wane loolu.
Thank you. Model behavior.
Gambian African fathers, let's just say, because I'm not you guys that and they're not Gambian. African fathers are naturally hard and rigid most of the time towards their kids.
Yes. Yeah. And because they're repeating what they saw. So when you don't model good behavior, then these men are going to grow up, these boys are going to grow up to be men, and they're going to repeat the same behavior that they witness in the household. Exactly. So it becomes this unhealthy cycle. It becomes these generational curses that it takes an individual to take real effort to say, I'm going to do it differently. Because when you know better, you do better. So when you've been exposed, ñaata Gambian ak ñaata Senegalese wala African ñoo dee ñëw si suñ dëkka yi Western wall bi ñëw jànga fi expose seen boppa ba pare suñ delloo dañoo mel ni musuñoo génna.
Exactly.
Suñ demee tubaab bi dinañ leen ibiloo seen tànka yi di leen maral seen muuti yi ñuy koo jël di ko nangu di ko enjoy waaye suñ ñibsee soo ko ne kaay ma moccal la sax yi fi caga yooyu yi fi caga yooyu man suma jabar nga man suma jabar du mocca suma koy bi kon ku laa moccal sa koy bi. And that's why they go out and have girlfriends, because they have this mentality that your wife is someone you hold at a different level, so she's virtuous. So because she's virtuous, she's not supposed to perform certain sexual acts. Why sa jabar moo la war a defal lu nekk yow tam nga defal ko lu nekk.
Exactly.
But we have
and this is why the divorce rate in Gambia is so freaking high.
Yeah.
People are not sexually compatible because Gurbi is on probably another planet in comparison to his wife. You understand?
Yeah.
Somebody kind of once said to me, this is before we got married. Like dating, lana sineka si Gambia. Kusi gana muna fen sa morom. My relationship with ne. No, but it's true. So like, yeah. But once they get married, the layers of lies and fakeness and all of that, it disappears, and you're left in a situation more hamne. Either gagena wala ngamun kafa.
Yeah.
Because Gambians are very rigid in our ways. We need to understand that as well. Ñun Gambian, we're pare wuñoo change. Te suñ pare change nak. I'm not going to be gender biased here, but the women are the ones that are changing the country.
We are.
Policy media. How many women do we have?
Yeah.
That are speaking facts, like they're trying their best to put it out there, like, gender equality and all of that. But women are the most active when it comes to Gambia.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to get this. I'm going to make sure I have this. I don't give a shit what people say anymore. They're going to say,
yeah.
Men really don't think like that in Gambia.
No, we have to liberate ourselves. See, because if we don't, the patriarchy does not favor women. So that's why you find more women being rebels. That's why you find more women standing against the status quo. That's why you find more women just telling themselves that, when it comes to culture, we're going to just put it aside and I'm going to try something different and something new. Men don't need to do that because it works for them. It's just like racism in America. The white majority is quiet. Why do we have the silent majority? Because it works for them. Look at this election. Xam ngeen ne su doon amuñu woon COVID-19 quarantine ak epidemic bi
exactly.
Trump would have won again. I mean, this was the highest number of voters out. Ku nekk génn na pour vote. And still, this guy, look at the numbers that he put up. The patriarchy and racism in America, it works for white men. If it works for white men, it works for white women. People were shocked the percentage of women that actually voted for Trump, white women that voted for Trump. But why would they not? Because it favors their husbands, it favors their brothers, it favors their son, it favors their fathers. So fuck ñoom seen loyalty si seen góor yi la nekka. So ñun Africa, suñ xoolee suñ tradition si ak suñ culture bi, it favors góor yi. So góor yi pour lan ñuy génn si di wax ne waaw, hey, jigéen yi da ngeen war a am sexual freedom. Pour lan? ñoom as long as they're getting their nut on, they're fine.
maa ngi delluwaat si li nga wax affaire yi, it favors them. Gambia tamit, there's one thing we need to get out the way. You're talking about racism. Man dama feel like ne ba léegi Gambians believe ne tubaab bi, let's be honest here, tubaab bi ak ñoo xam ne seen der moo ñu gën a weex or xees or whatever, they're more intelligent, they're more capable. It's like we are so intimidated by fairness and whiteness.
Yeah.
To a point that lolu tamit is something that I'm like, okay, do we not realize that niku wear or niku hairs genuñu? You know, you just mentioned that, and these are the things that are still, I won't say hindering our development, but that's what it is in Gambia.
Actually, it is hindering our development, but that is also the PTSD from colonial days that we've never recovered from. White is better.
Exactly.
White is smarter. But it's not just us. If you go to India, it's the same. So they may hire tuba nga ñëw pour pitch sa idea. Tuba bi pitch
white and right. Is that the term?
That's right.
White is not right. Yeah.
Yeah. Then all of a sudden, everyone stands behind you because a white man has said it, so it's a brilliant idea. Why Indian bi su ko waxoon ak accentam bi ani moo yëngalee boppam bi nga ne kii demal toog. Yow African bi soo ñëwee nga pitch idea ak sa thick African accent bi ñu dismiss la. Why so India tuba mu wax the exact same thing li nga wax, all of a sudden we give it importance. But we've never healed from that. And now we have a new form of colonialism, which is the race for Africa. You have China, you have India, you have America. Everyone is running back to the continent and just looting.
Like they're everywhere.
Yeah, but when we take it to the sexual aspect, it's the same chat. Because if you look at it, when you're with a white woman, you feel like as an African man, the white woman could do anything and get away with it in bed. and you don't contest. Yéen ay suñ buggee indi sex toy sax dugal ko si bedroom bi, you're okay with it. Why African jigéen su ko xalaatee, hey yi fi caga yi man bugguma xale bu jigéen bu yaaxu man bugg, why tubaab bi moom yaaxuut moom moo indi sex toys yi moom yaaxuut. So it's like there's this double standard.
There was a sex toy shop in Gambia called Something Secrets, and a lot of women bought sex toys from there. But case of one on your day, like they actually own a sex toy. They'll be like, no.
Yeah, and you know the saddest part about that actually is the number of women that are using sex toys because they're not satisfied with their husbands. So it's one thing to bring sex toys, and we had a sex toy episode on the Lotus flower where you bring in sex toys as a couple and you're saying we're going to experience this together. But the man has to be open-minded to it and not have insecurities, because go you body then you're funny. So in this sex toy, that means sex toy be that replace.
More like gonna satisfy.
Wow. Why Nilian wahante dega? There is no clit stimulator, there is no dildo, there is no sex toy bugina neh bandal. Nilian wahante dega rek? We as women, we prefer the real thing.
Like real deal.
Thank you. We all want the real deal. Huh? Suma cousin naka la ko de waye monsieur Ndel Fondong ñun ñep monsieur Ndel Fondong lañ buga wa monsieur Ndel Fondong dafa neex. So yow ñaka pexe gi moo dee tax yéen ay xale jigéen yi dem si sex toys yi. Why? Because yaa ngi rusa wax sa jëkkër ne li moo def neexu la, wala yaa ngi rusa wax sa jëkkër ne yow nii nga ko buggee. So instead of nga ibi sa gémmiñ bi wax ko bugguloo ko offend, bugguloo mu feel some kind of way, so nga ne xaaral ma bàyyi rek man su ñëwee ma ibi ŋaali ba jo rek moom mu def li moo def dem yoonam, den yow soo paree moom su demee liggéey wala su tukkee nga jël sa sex toy bi di foyee sa boppa.
But no, okay, no offense to suñ yaayee suñ mère yi, but loolu lañ def si ñun jigéen, we are being prepped to produce.
Yeah.
That's it. The role of our bodies is just to have babies.
That's right.
You know? And it's very sad that till this day, am na ñoo xam ne they think ne loolu la.
Yeah.
You know? To a point like, I mean, even rape in marriage, Gambian women don't talk about.
That's right.
Like a lot of women are being raped, and not that they don't have a voice, they think it's normal.
Yes.
You know, they think it's okay pour góor egg sa kaw fekk you're not even ready. Mentally sax loolu mun na la distable, like you can lose your mind. Am na jigéen yu bari every time buñ leen di jox time or bu ñoo laalante ñoom, they're not in the moment because it's painful.
Yes.
They don't know what they're doing. Yàlla bu nekk na ñu ngi la mee si aada yoo xam ne ñu ngi la mee at a teen, yaa ngi nekk xale bu ndaw ñu dugal la si biir néegi sëy, yaa ngi nekk loolu from time bi sa ween sa joganguñ nañu waxante dëgga nga dem ba mag bay jur ngay jur si biir loolu. Suñ paree ñu naan diw sangam day moom dafa teel a màgget na teel a màgget because xolam neexul.
Yes. The sex law xam ne la ñun ñëpp a ko war a enjoy. So the fact ne ñun ñu ngi wax ne ñëpp a war a enjoy sex, it's become this radical thing. Oh, we shouldn't say that. ñëpp a war a enjoy sex. Waaye jigéen dafa war a enjoy sex ni góor di enjoy sex. In 2020, xale jigéen yi suñ nekku di enjoy sex. Kon ñoom la ne, because like I said, ku nekk you have a phone in your hand. Du joolaa bi, du soose bi, du mandinka bi, du fula bi, du séeréer bi, ku nekk am na phone. And it doesn't matter when we talk about socioeconomic status, whether you're the minister or you're the driver or you're the maid or you're the watchman, everybody has a phone. As long as you have a phone in your hand, you have access to pornography. So what happens is, if we don't talk about these things, we have expectations of each other to perform like porn stars. And guess what? We're not porn stars. Wala xale jigéen ñi xëj na the first time ñuy gis sula mooy si porn sites yi. So you're expecting 12-inch, 10-inch dick. The average Gambian dick is actually 6 inches, my sister. 6.
Oh, I went a bit.
You're
gonna blow up with that. I'm sorry. No offense. I thought it was 4.
The average average Gambian dick is 6 inches. So xale yi ndaw yi teenagers yi su dee ñu ngi seetaan seen phone yi si seen phone si ñu ngi gis ay 12-inch 10-inch dick fo ne loolu mooy dick suñ demee first time seen jëkkër yi génnee seen affaire yi su ko defee nga gis mu ngi ndaw you're like man gisuma woon lii si phone bi de waaye naka lañ koo xamee dañ leen waxtaana suñu xale yu jigéen yi nañ leen waxtaana suñu xale yu góor yi nañ leen bàyyi di stigmatize the idea of girls and boys who are sexually active before they get married ba pare lu ma bugg a laaj ñi mooy xale yu góor yi nga xam ne ñu ngee kattante bala ñoo sëy ñan ngeen bugg a ñu katta su dul jigéen so ñun ñëpp suñu waree toog keppa suñ tànkay xaar ba sëy kan la xale yu góor yi di katta wax leen ma ko.
That's why loolu moo ubbi bunta bi pour a lot of homosexuality.
Uh-huh.
You notice, I'm not talking about Africa, as in ñun Senegal, Gambia, whatever. I'm talking about, okay, so them on the Arab countries, there's a lot of hidden homosexuality. When I say the Arab countries, I'm talking about the Muslim countries. There was a whole documentary about how these young boys are gay within these secret men societies, and these men are like all of this stuff happening. And I'm like, okay, this is the country for him. Al-Quran full of watching. So, ñun ñu nekk Africa, suñu xale góor yi di def lu leen neex, but they're still going out. Some of them are gay. Whether we accept it or not, the gay community in Gambia and Senegal is rising.
It's growing.
So trying to tell me that these boys feel like, okay, they cannot wait for vagina. Nañ dem uti ji seen moromi góor.
Wow.
And loolu mu ngi existe suñ biir.
Mane yow yaa ngi wax sa waxi Arab countries yi bàyyi nañ leen bàyyi di daw wax su ko defee ñuy koo teg ñeneen ñun Africans yi right now the biggest sale for strap-on dildos is the African continent. Lan mooy strap-on dildos loolu mooy ida sa jigéen a ngee strap su ko defee mu ngi am fake sula di penetrate sa jëkkër mu ngi xew suñ dëkk yi nañ leen bàyyi di pretend ñenn yi dañoo dem ba sëy because they don't have a choice because they're gay, but they feel like they have to marry a woman, but they can't help their sexual urges. So, nga waxtaana sa jëkkër mu sa jabar mu understand su ko defee nga jënal ko strap-on yow soo ko penetrate ba pare yow tam nga juutu sa jabar penetrate la mu ngee xew. Why are the sales for strap-on dildos in Africa on such a rise? Because the men are finding ways to satisfy their gay urges, even though society won't allow them to be who they truly and really are. So if you can't express yourself outwardly, you're going to do it inside. Am na jigéen yu bari ñoo xam ne ñu ngi penetrate seen góor yi te waxuñ ko kenn dañ ko ñemee wax fuñ ko waxee soo ko waxee ñu stigmatize la yow ñu stigmatize sa góor. Yes.
No, it's like I read this article about this white woman that was talking about how she came to Gambia and she realized that the person that she was married to, this one was actually funny. He enjoyed having his ass or his anus fondled with, and I'm like, okay. And then she realized later on that he is proper gay, and I'm like, that was a bit obvious from your first paragraph, but you know, it was to everybody else that read the article. They were like, oh my gosh, I'm like, clearly this is not the first person this guy has asked to mess around with his butthole.
Yeah.
You know, so let's stop the blame other cultures, which you said right. So I'm talking about how gory, even Mary, you get fondle or the fire hale. Oh, party, you get and there's no voice for them to speak up about it.
Yes. You know,
a lot of the molested.
It's very true. Africans dañoo ñëw suñ tukki su ñëwee tubaab bi lu nekk lañ leen a def mu neex leen ñu nangu ko ñoom si seen bopp yéen ay ñëw dee request pour xale yu jigéen yi jël ndax benn baaraam ndax ñaari baaraam dugal ko si seen muuti yi di leen fondul ñuy ko enjoy ba pare suñ ñëpp si xale bu jigéen su la ko laajee ndax bugga nga ko nga mel ni daf la offend waaye fekk yow bus nga koo def so fen gi lañ war a bàyyi ba pare di make this perception that anything that we perceive as sexually unacceptable is something that's done in the West. When it comes to Africans, when it comes to our continent, sex is very basic. It's man, it's woman, it's missionary style. But that's not always the case. And we have to leave room for people who want to experiment. As long as ba pare xam nga liñ dee wax te xam nga yaa ngi fi ekkati woon benn wax. I want to bring that back. One of your episodes, you talked about a woman who had called in or wrote into you and told you that her husband only penetrates her from her asshole. He's not interested in her pussy hole. He's not interested in her vagina. He just wants to penetrate her asshole all the time. And there are plenty African women that will sing that same song. My husband just wants me to lay on my back and he go in my asshole. My husband just wants me to lay on my back and he go in my asshole. Kon yow jëkkër boobu gay la, jëkkër boobu góor jigéen la, kooku bugut jigéen. Because naka nga gisee caapa, a caapa nim tooyee, a nim neexee, nga ne buguloo faa musa duga, yow muuti rek nga duga. Kon yow, there's something going on. Te xale jigéen yi foog ñu dimbali leen génne leen si situations yooyu. Why fuñ ko waxee? Where do they go to talk about these things? You go to your mom, su ko defee sa yaay ne la lii bu ko musa waxati. Nel tek demal nga toog si sa biir sëy bi nga muñ. Loolu nit mun na koo muñ. Your whole life of being penetrated in your asshole? That's not sex. It's not enjoyable for her. So I feel like we need to normalize talking about sex topics. We need to normalize having sessions like this where two African women come and we discuss what's going on within our community in regards to sex, in regards to intimacy. And we can also learn from each other and teach each other. I love that Fatimata Rahman Koka has started this Femme Jigin episode. Jigin Femme, thank you, that she did. And everybody gets to come in and talk about, share their experiences and talk about what they've learned, what works for them, what doesn't work for them. But we should normalize these conversations in our society because it takes away the stigma, it takes away the fear, it takes away the shame. At the end of the day, we're all sexual beings. We're all sexual beings. Ndax góor nga tëddal, ndax jigéen nga tëddal, ndax jigéen a jigéen, ndax góor a góor, ñun ñëpp affaire yi daal, yi fi caapa, yi fi sula, yi fi muuti, we're doing it. So let's talk about it. We can learn from each other. Yeah. It's very simple.
It's the whole process of learning. I'm going to wrap up the show for tonight, but it's the whole process of learning. And if you're just tuning in, I'm wrapping up for tonight. We've had a great show, but this show is going on YouTube. I'm watching me. It's not even the ragal part. It's coming down. But yes, it'll be on my YouTube, so go and bloody follow, unsubscribe. I don't understand why they don't subscribe and follow, but you have to follow and subscribe by force to watch this content. I've got royalty on my show today. So it's all about experience, I guess. I mean, raising innovation, it touches on a lot of things. But today, I had Anna Fye Buttner, and we just opened a lot of doors for conversation. The conversation can continue again. Please go and and listen to her network, Lotus Flower. You shall learn a lot about yourselves and just learn about, things that people have not been able to discuss for decades and centuries within our country. But raising innovation, your final words, my love, before I say good night. I love having you on.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy you had me on. We've talked about this.
My son keeps knocking on the door like, Mommy. So I'm like, okay.
I know. I have my Zoom schoolers upstairs. I told them, don't come downstairs. Mommy's doing a session. So I know they're ready to come down as well. But I'm so glad I got the chance to come on your platform and share. When it comes to, again, raising innovative kids, because that's where we started, you just want to make sure that you create an environment where children are able to express themselves. And let's be very mindful of how we talk to our children and speak goodness into their lives. Nañ leen bàyyi di aaju suñ doom yi, nañ leen bàyyi di xas suñ doom yi, nañ leen bàyyi di rusloo suñ doom yi. Let's build children who have confidence by us speaking goodness into them. I know my son, every day before he leaves for school, before I walk him to the bus stop, he'll say, I'm blessed and highly favored. I can be anything I want to be in this world, and I am God's child. And that's how he goes off
Oh,
to school. And it's just a way, and you keep repeating that goodness into you, and it self manifests. It
mhm,
becomes true, right? So, and when it comes to Lotus Flower podcast and the topics we talk about, you can find it on Spotify, you can find it on Apple, you can find it on Anchor. We touch on everything sex, so you can learn, you can share. And if you have any topics you want me to touch on, just send me a message, and I'll be able to address those topics. You rock, Chad. Keep doing you. I love your show.
I love you too. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Now I'll call in a minute.
Okay.
Thank you for being on the show. Like I said, you're an inspiration to a lot of us. Anna Fye Buttner, you were voiced for a lot of people, and you're a support system for a lot of people of this generation that are trying to break into different things. And I know that it's taken you, your personal journey is different compared to everybody else's, but your personal journey is actually inspiring a lot of people to break into media and just raise their voices and just talk about things that are affecting us as young Africans and Gambians and things like that, sexually, mentally, and all of that, and physically as well, understanding our bodies. And I love the fact that you're very unfiltered. So I want to recommend people, and not recommend, I'm going to provide the link for her podcast. Please, go. I'm not, you guys don't follow me or whatever on YouTube, but please follow her podcast. You will learn so much, and you'll understand, and you will turn a new chapter in your sex life, hopefully. Um, but that was the chit chat with chat for today. Inshallah, I'll be back on Thursday. Inshallah. And dilen ñaanal ngoon jama. Xéewal yu bari. Wërsëg yu yokku. Inshallah. I have actually my content for next or this Thursday will be the evolution of the marabu. We need to talk about Sirintu in Gambia and how it has evolved into what it is today. We have Sirintu online and all that kind of stuff. So it's time for us to actually talk about these great gifted men that are on our social networks and dipping their hands in our pockets and things like that. So inshallah, see you guys on Thursday. Have a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday and fanana jama. Good night.